So in this video, we're going to look at 3D coordinates. Now we've already met 2D coordinates where we have our X and our Y axis. Now to make this three-dimensional, what we need to do is we need to add in another axis. So we have X, we have Y, and we're going to add in another axis called Z, and that is our third axis in our third dimension. Now what that looks like is we keep our X and our Y like we normally have, except we place that flat down. So X still controls left and right, but Y now controls forward and back. So that's heading away from us, and this is Y heading towards us. And then we have our Z coordinate as well. So Z controls up and down. Now, if we were to take some point, okay, we still use the same notation with commas separating the X, the Y, and the Z value, and we still need brackets around it. Now, as we see here, there's that extra value there, which is our Z value. Now, this coordinate here, A, tells us I'm going to head in a positive X direction by a value of A. The B tells me that I'm going to head in a positive Y direction. Now, the positive Y direction heads away from us, and I'm going to head by a distance of B. And then C is that new value, which is your Z axis, and I'm heading in a positive Z direction. So that's what the three things tell us. Now, what you might be asked to do is you're going to be given some kind of object. You're going to be told one, maybe 2 points on that object, and you're going to be asked to find certain other points. So for this example, we're going to start with a cuboid. And it tells me that F has the coordinates 9, 6, and 5. So F is here. Now that 9, 6, and 5, so it tells me that it has an X value of 9. So it's headed along an X value by 9 units. It tells me it's headed in the Y direction by 6 units, so that's back the way. And then it's told me it's headed up by 5 units. Now, just using those three values, we can work out all the other coordinate points. Now, I would always recommend starting with something nearby to F. Okay, so let's just start with F, and that's going to be 9, 6, and 5. Now, I'm going to do B next. So B is going to have the same X value, which is 9. It's going to have the same Y value because it's the same distance away back from you. So that's 6, but it hasn't got any height. It stays there at 0. So the Z value is going to be 0. Then let's move on to A. So A is going to have the same X value, so that will be 9. It's going to have, well, it doesn't have a Y value. Well, it does. It doesn't have a value of 6. It's got a value of 0 because it doesn't head away from you. And then in terms of height, well, it doesn't go up at all, so that must be 0 as well. E, again, same X value, same distance along, so that's going to be 9. It doesn't go back the way because it's on top of A, so that's going to have a Y value of 0, but it does have a height, so it's got a height of 5. Now, 4 more to do. Nice, easy one, the origin here. 0, 0, 0, because it's not moved. Just to keep all the pictures here, I'm just going to move up here for C, D, and G. So let's do D next. So D doesn't have an X value because it hasn't moved left or right, or the value is 0, sorry. The Y value is also going to be 0 because it's not moved back or towards us. But it does have a height, and it has a height of 5. Let's go to G next. So G doesn't, the X value is going to be 0 because it hasn't moved left or right. The Y value, now G has moved in the positive Y direction, and it's the same as this value of F and B because that's the same distance back the way. So that's going to be a value of 6. And G does have a height here, it's 5. And then the last one is going to be C. Again, the X value is going to be 0, hasn't moved left or right. The Y value, well, yeah, it's gone back by 6. And it doesn't have the same height as these ones, so that's stayed at the bottom here, it's going to be 0. Now, that's essentially one of the more straightforward ones that you are likely to see. And they will use objects where you can tell that if that is 9, then that will be 9, that will be 9, that will be 9. Using these facts, you can work out all the points on here. But what they might do is they might give you slightly trickier objects. So I've got a pyramid made up by OA, B, C, and D. I know that the height of the pyramid is 6 units, so that's already telling me something about D here, because that's at the top of the pyramid. and it tells me that the coordinates of B is 6, 8, and 0. So that's B there. Now I need to find the coordinates of D. Now it's a pyramid, so D is going to be in the middle here. Okay, so D is exactly in the middle of this value. Now this point B, I've gone 6 along this way. So I know that that's 6. I know that I've traveled 8 in the y direction. So if I'm wanting to find the middle point, so the midpoint here would have to be half of this journey of 6 and half of the journey of 8. So for the coordinates of D, it's going to have an x value of 3 because it's going to be halfway. It's going to have a y value of 4 because it's going to be halfway. Now the only thing I need to know is the height, and that was what it told me in the question. The height of the pyramid is 6 units. So it's going to have a z value of 6. And part B, so that was part A. Part B, find the coordinates of the midpoint of CB. Now the midpoint is going to be halfway along that line there. So I'm traveling halfway along this OA line, so I'm heading 3 in the positive x direction. So midpoint of CB. So they've not given it another name, so I'm going to call it the midpoint of CB. It's going to have an x value of 3. Now the y value is how far back it's gone. Now when I was finding D, I had to half it because that was in the middle. However, the midpoint's going to have the same y value as CB because it's on that line between them. So that's going to be 8. And then the z value, well, it's on the bottom of my pyramid there. So it's going to be 0. And that is a quick guide to 3D coordinates.